So Tiffany, what is one mistake you see musicians making with their money?
So one mistake I see musicians making with their money is really just not being intentional with it. I think a lot of times the lifestyle, the work leads to a certain level of feeling like you're not in control, that you're waiting for the money to come to you rather than seeking it out proactively, or being intentional with how you're using it, since so much of the lifestyle essentially is just waiting for the contracts to come in, and the work to come. So I think one of the mistakes I see is people not being intentional and feeling like they're not in control. And then another thing that I see is musicians at all different stages in their career is really not making hay when the sun shines. Like when things are, really, really busy and you're exhausted, but the money is coming in, that's great. You have to save it. You have to use that time to plan accordingly, just in case, around the corner is like a little bit of a dry spell, or in case you find yourself in a situation where maybe you get sick or you can't take an engagement. It's about being really intentional and not just saying, wow, everything is wonderful and I'm going to buy all this stuff that I've put off for months. But it's really just being intentional with it and being in control and taking control of your own finances.
What are some planning mistakes that you see musicians making as well?
I think it's really about thinking about yourself as a small business and treating your finances like a small business owner would, which means, having regular time to reconcile your books or to jot down the expenses that have come out from the business side and to keep track of the revenue coming in and projected revenue coming in. By being intentional and scheduling time to do that, just like you schedule your practice time and your travel time and everything else, this is another part of what it takes to really be a well-rounded business person, and putting the systems in place to systematize it so that you don't even have to think about the work or how you're tracking everything. That just makes it easier. A lot of times finances and business planning aren't the sexiest things to do.
Do you believe money problems inhibit musicians from reaching their goals? And if you do, how so?
Yeah. I think money problems are a big impediment to musicians. Part of this comes from my own experience. I didn't pursue a master's in performance because after working in arts management for international musicians, the inconsistency of the income from my super safe salaried position, it was too much for me to stomach. And I think that people who jump all in and do that, I think that the inconsistency over time can take its toll. It's stressful. There's a lot of fear and anxiety wrapped up in our own issues with money. And I think that one of the things that I see all the time is that if people don't address that, or if people don't put systems in place or create a plan or build up savings, if they don't give themselves a solid financial foundation, over time, that'll begin to manifest in the body. As a singer, we know, the instrument is what it is. And it's crazy what stress can do and how finances can kind of creep in and create tension in places that it didn't exist before. So I think it's really important to take control and to really face your planning and your money head on, to keep you kind of free to do the creative work that you need to do and focus on the important part of just creating your art.
That's interesting. We always think about tension and our technique, but we don't think of money as being the reason why that high note is not perfect that day or something like that. Take care of these things so that you can do your craft.
Well, think about it. If you're heading into an audition and you're like, oh my God, I really need this because I've got nothing else lined up for next season or over the summer or whatever, this is my rent, this is my all of these other things. There's a lot of subliminal messaging wrapped up in that. And you could be self-sabotaging yourself by just, focusing so much and not even realizing how that tension and fear and anxiety is becoming part of the body. And then conversely, like, take a minute and think about this. Like, if you're going into an audition with 20 grand in the bank, you're like, you win some, you lose some. It's not about me. It gives you that power and control to really go out and do what's important and let all the other stuff just fall by the wayside.
Can you give us some examples of types of issues that you've helped musicians with recently?
I've been working with a lot of young artists most recently. And so one of the number one things that comes up is like student loans. And What do we do with that? It's a difficult career to head into and to build in. And it's even more difficult when you've got hundreds of dollars going out the door a month in required student loan repayment. So one of the things, I had a conversation with a client, and he's a little further down. He's probably been in the career for about 10 years. And he's had this $100,000 monkey on his back this whole time. He's doing his job. He's having a lot of success in the career and he loves what he does. But he's like, oh my God, I'm never going to get out from under this. And the interest rates are rising and there's just so much wrapped into that. And again, that then translates to, I need more gigs. I need better paying. I need which detracts from the artistry. And so in our planning conversation, he mentioned that this was a major concern of his. And, we just got on the phone with his loan provider together. I had some suspicions because I'm pretty familiar with different loan repayment plans, but we picked up the phone, we called his provider together and asked some really pointed questions about the type of repayment plans he's in, what options he has available. And essentially he is already signed up for a plan that will alleviate and forgive his student loans up to 25 years. He's already halfway there almost. I don't want to tell tales, but I think he cried because it was suddenly like, I don't have to worry about this. I can continue doing what I'm doing and I'm not going to be 70 years old and still making student loan payments. So that freedom to him and just knowing, okay, what I'm doing is working. We're going to stay the course, continue to make minimum payments, which are very low at this stage of the game, and know that this is not going to be something that haunts him or his family down the road was a gift. It was really freeing to him. He's having an incredible season this year too. I don't know if it was directly related to that, but I think it was just kind of like, I'm going to focus on controlling what I can control and doing that. So that was really kind of a fun conversation because it's so nice to be able to lift people up and say, you're good. You can go back to creating the beauty that you create. Another thing that I help people with is I have a client in New York who is a phenomenal reed player, and he's just insanely busy. And he's doing recordings and he's on Broadway and he's all over the place. And when the money is coming in, again, the making hay while the sun shines, it's just sort of going into a savings account, which is great. But over time, that's not the most efficient place for him. And so we had a conversation around, what are your goals? What are your instrument needs? What do you need to put back into the work? And then where do we see this going in terms of, how can we position your savings to support you through the ebbs and flows over the next decade or 3? And really creating some intentional buckets of money for what he needs, whether it's travel or beginning your retirement savings, and educating him about best places and really structuring his finances so that when the money comes in, there's already a plan in place. He doesn't have to think about it. This is going here, back to taxes, like zero brain energy put on that, so he can just continue to focus and run. And I think that that's been really helpful. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to spend more time on financial and business planning than they need to. So it's just a little bit of legwork on the front end to just allow your brain to just be like, yep, that's what we're doing, and back to business.
I'm sure both of those people probably felt extremely relieved to have somebody not only telling them what to do, but you being in their corner, calling with them and setting things in place with you side by side, figuring out what you need to do. So like you said, you don't have to think about it later and you can just do your art, do your craft, right?
Finance is it's so ambiguous. There's so much jargon. I mean, a lot of advisors just speak finance speak, which is intimidating. And a lot of people feel like they don't know anything, so they don't engage. And I came into this career because I believe that everybody deserves expert level of planning. And if everybody had an accountability buddy or someone in their corner for them to navigate those hard conversations. I mean, when you're picking up a phone and you're calling an institution or a loan provider, they're asking you all these questions. And if you don't do it all day, every day, you're kind of like, sure. Okay, great. Just get me through this. And really, by being there, it's not hard for me to ask very pointed questions to get people to commit to sharing information about things that are going to benefit the individuals I work for. And it's just a matter of really kind of taking someone's hand and just being there for them. Because setting this up, once everything is in place, it's really easy to maintain that. But I think a lot of people come to me because it's just nice to know that when life is happening or things are going really well or things are not going very well, to have a trusted person to go, okay, So this is what I'm doing. What do you think? Just having a sounding board, because I share best practices and I always provide a ton of financial literacy, because at the end of the day, my philosophy is it's your life, it's your money. Like, it has to make sense to you, not me, not your parents, not anybody else. It has to make sense to you. And so by empowering the people that I work with to really learn through the process and then develop their own systems, over time, they don't really need as much of the hand-holding, because they understand why they're doing what they're doing. There's a system in place, there's a plan in place, and we check in and we maintain that.
And how do you teach musicians to master their business and their financial fundamentals to achieve this success?
It's really all about just providing financial literacy. And it's interesting because even the college and the conservatory programs that do provide the business of music or some sort of fundamental course in their programming now, which more are, when you're learning it in a vacuum, it means nothing. Your priorities and your understanding about finances when you're 19 and you're in the cloistered environment of college is very different than when you're 23 going audition to audition to audition, or when you're 36 and you've got a family and you're managing it. I mean, it's very, very different. And so I think it's really important to kind of educate people from where they're at. And we just build that in, it's just, okay, this is where you are today and this is where you want to go. And so we kind of look at some core things like saving, investing, debt management, risk management. And I mean, I could sit and explain the nuances of the stock market and how stocks and bonds work and where your investment should be. But unless it means something to you, unless that's a goal of yours, or we're talking about your assets and how this is going to perform for you, that means nothing. Like, I might as well just be speaking in Russian. Like, it has to make sense. And so really, from starting people from where they are, we just begin the educational process as we're planning. So I'm not going to start off with investment management for someone who's just like, got to pay down these credit cards. Okay, great. So we're going to build a savings fund and do the credit card at the same time, right? And it's just educating people about these processes. So not only are they doing it and they're implementing the plans that are benefiting them, but they're learning about it. And if they're learning about it, they can maintain it. If they're learning about it, they can also share it to the other people in their world. And I guess my mission is to really build a community of financially savvy and business savvy arts professionals. It's important for people to have a plan and understand the components of their plan. Not, here's an analysis that some advisor put together for you based on your risk retention and your time horizon and the projected rate of return. No, I mean, you need to know, why can't I exceed my dining out budget next month? What am I going to have to jeopardize? Like, what is the trade-off there? Or, oh gosh, my great aunt just gave us this great gift. So where does it go? And having a plan in place means that when these financial things come into your life, you know where it's going, because you understand the fundamentals of how each piece of your planning is really set in motion to get you to your goals.
And how can our listeners start taking charge of their business and finances right now?
The first thing I would do is, if you're the type of person to kind of put blinders up or put your head in the sand, it's really about just owning it. Know your numbers. Finance is not sexy. There's so many more aspects of this industry that are just so much more fun. But I think it's really important to just sit down, and the first thing you have to know is, what does it cost to run your life? What are you spending on a monthly basis? And what are your bills? But also, what are your habits? It's the discretionary spending, the dining out, the shopping, or whatever. 90% of what we do every day is habit. And if you're just going by the bakery and those smells are wafting out and they're just kind of calling you in like sirens, like, it's like, yeah, I get a coffee and I get a pastry and I do this. And if that's your routine, what is that costing you? And is that Starbucks run or whatever keeping you from being able to travel for fun? So I guess the first thing is really just getting clear on the numbers, knowing what your expenses are monthly. And then from there, you really build a plan. Expenses and dollars going out is sometimes easier to control than dollars coming in. If we could all go out and get 3 other paying jobs, every month and just kind of rake in the cash when we need it, that would be lovely. But that's not the lifestyle. So controlling what you can control, really knowing, like, if I need to pare down, how little can we make the monthly expenses? And then from there, that then drives what we call like your emergency fund. So put 6 months of that in the bank, whatever that number is, or even more than that, depending on how frequently you're working and what your next season is projected to look like. And if on a monthly basis through singing or playing or music, that's not coming in, then we need to find means of actually producing that revenue, whether it's a side job or, just extraneous gigs or a 9 to 5 or whatever it takes to get you to your financial goals. Because at the end of the day, nobody else is going to come in and make your payments for you. And nobody else is going to tell you how to run your life. So you need to know what money you need to bring in to be comfortable in your lifestyle. And then from there, we plan either from the savings aspect or this is how we produce that money on a monthly basis regularly to do that. And then some other core things that you should be running all the time in your business is just a net worth statement. And you should know if you're profitable. So net worth is this is all of my assets, all of the savings and anything worth value, right? If life hit the fan tomorrow and we had to liquidate everything, this is how much cash I could make. That's your assets. Your liabilities are, okay, these are people I owe money to. So your loans, credit cards, mom and dad, whomever, money going out. So just in like a snapshot look, assets, liability, bottom line is assets minus liabilities equals net worth. So we want to eventually get that positive. Side note, if you're carrying student loans, that number is probably negative, but that's okay. It's normal. Measuring against that year over year, we always want to see that net worth number go up. And as your debts go down and as your savings go up, your net worth increases. That is the number one measure of financial wellness for most people. And then it's also, again, knowing if you're profitable. So on a month-to-month or a quarterly basis, these are the expenses that I'm paying for the business, right? Your coachings, your travel, and your web hosting, all of those things that come out of pocket that you pay to do the work to earn your income. You need to know what those expenses are and what the income is to offset it. One of the number one things I tell people is do not take, a wedding gig that's going to cost you $200 in time for $150. Be really intentional with what that type of opportunity presents you. Is it just the opportunity to try out a new piece in front of a new audience? You have to be thinking like a business person. And there are reasons not to turn it down. For instance, maybe it's not paying very well, but it's an opportunity to sing with a new conductor that you haven't worked with, or it's a great networking opportunity. But going into it, you need to know what your objective is. It's not just necessarily to get paid to perform, but really I know that I need to make a contact. I need to have a meaningful conversation with the director of this program or something like that to make sure that you're always being intentional with your next step from a career and a business standpoint.
What advice do you have for professional musicians today?
The world needs your gifts and talents and music more than ever. And I think that you, as a working professional, also deserve to be living a lifestyle that you're comfortable with. The starving artist trope is so passe. Nobody wants to give up on their personal goals or give up the dream of having a family or owning a home because they're putting everything that they have back into the art. And so I think the world needs what you do. And so one of the best acts of self-care is taking time to do these planning things. Again, it's not sexy, but the amount of mental peace that you can get and clarity of direction in the industry and in your work that comes from just having some regular planning conversations is really paramount. I love so much to be able to support the arts and the industry through this way by helping lift up other artists. Don't settle for having to sacrifice your life goals. There are ways to have your personal, professional, and financial goals met through this work. And it takes a little bit of control and intentional forward momentum, but over time it gets there. It's not easy, but at the end of the day, there's so many opportunities. And sometimes you just have to get creative or think outside the box or be really intentional with what your priorities are and what you want to achieve. So whether it's, main stage at the Met next season, or, I don't want to do that. I just kind of want to make my living singing. Whatever it takes for you to be happy and achieve your goals, you deserve that. You deserve to be able to work a career that you love and you're talented at and have a lifestyle that fulfills you and lights you up. If you're looking for information for how to best organize your taxes, I'm actually releasing like a comprehensive checklist just for all the things that artists could potentially deduct and write off. And so on my website, virtuosoadvising.com, or the Facebook page, Virtuoso Advising for Artists, I'm putting that information out there. It's free. go and take it. And I'm here. If you have questions about what it's like to work with me, or just a question that I can just kind of spit back a quick answer and keep you running on your way, I'm happy to do that. Please feel free to reach out. My information is on my website.